Hi there, everyone. My name is PreRound. I'm an internal medicine resident at Stanford, and I'm finishing up my intern year, and it's made me kind of reflect on the things that I've learned. And this video is to describe my workflow as an intern, and I'm hoping to make a lot more videos like this in the future because I think there's a lot about being an early doctor that needs to be elucidated a bit further. So today we're just going to go through the entire step, and I think this is important not just for individuals in internal medicine, but I actually think it's important regardless of your specialty, because regardless of where you're an intern, you're going to have to managing a lot of patients. You're going to have to know how to keep track of a lot of things. And you're going to need to make sure that the plan for the day is ultimately executed, regardless of what specialty you're in. And it can be a lot to handle, but as long as you have different tricks and tips, I think you can make it happen. So I'll now walk you through my personal workflow and take from it what is best for you, and disregard if you don't think it's as helpful. So here's my personal workflow. I actually start with a blank sheet of paper every morning that I go in, and I break that paper up into 8 smaller quadrants. So I fold it once, fold it twice, fold it 3 times, and that creates 8 mini squares. What that does is each square is now allotted to one patient, which now allows me to keep track of up to 16 patients at once, 8 in the front and 8 in the back. And this can be particularly really helpful because now if you actually have something for a patient, it's right next to another patient, and trust me, you're going to get calls for different patients at different times throughout the day, and having one place where you have all of them is really important, and specifically when it's catered to your personal insights. So now that you've made this separation, the next thing that's important is what is each patient going to absolutely need throughout the day. In internal medicine, you're going to have to pre-round on every patient, you're going to have to write a note on every patient, and you're going to eventually need to sign out every patient. So what I do is for each of those 8 squares, I put at the bottom 3 small letters. The first one is for L, the second one is for N, and the third one is for S. The L stands for the labs. What that means is, have I seen all of their labs in the morning, and do I know what's going on? If a patient came in with a leukocytosis, how is that leukocytosis changing? If someone came in with hyponatremia, has their sodium level, responded appropriately to the interventions we made? And if I look over the AM labs, I slowly cross it off, and I do that for every patient in the morning just so I know to myself that I have acknowledged what's going on. The second letter is the N. What that means is, did I write a note for this patient? Every patient needs to have a note every single day, so that way you can communicate to someone else what you did. And that note is very important. And when you're handling 16 patients and you're publishing notes at random times of the day, it's very hard to keep track of if you've written a note for a patient or not. And so when I actually write a note, I slowly cross off that note for that patient. And the S stands for sign out. Do you have the sign out for that patient updated? Because eventually you're going to go home and you're going to pass this patient off to someone else. You need to make sure you're able to communicate what you did that day, and you also have contingency plans ready if that patient were to decompensate. And then for each of these squares, I also write the patient number. I also write their age, their date of birth, and I often usually write their room number so I can easily get to them if I need to go. So here is now a sample of 3 different patients. You can see that I can put in my to-dos for every patient as I kind of work through them. So for example, for patient 1, I might need to consult vascular surgery. I might need to refill their medications for discharge. For patient 2, I might need to replete their potassium. I might need to update their family, and I might need to examine them for signs of increased volume overload. And I put each of these as tasks that I need to do throughout the day, so that way when I actually go to see that patient, I just look down, I see what I need to do, I do it, and I cross it off. The good part about this method is that usually I also save one of the squares, usually the bottom right square, as a learning box square for me. So things that I learn throughout the day. In medicine, you're going to be learning things very nonchalantly, like the attending will just mention a very good piece of wisdom, and you might just think, oh wow, I didn't think of that. And so it's important for you to jot it down so that way when you go home or when you actually have time down the road, you can just look over your learning boxes and come up with things that you remember because you wrote them down during rounds. Otherwise, if you don't write them down, you will not remember them, and it really impedes your learning. So I always like to save one of the 16 squares, usually the bottom right one, as my learning box for the things that I'm learning throughout the day. All right, so now that we've gone over the general workflow, you can now see that for each patient, I write down to-dos, I write down their 3 things that I need to do, and I kind of do that throughout the day. And as I slowly get things done, you'll see that I cross them off. As I cross things off, I then say, okay, I've done everything I need to do for patient 1, let's move on to patient 2. Let me make sure I did everything I need to do for patient 2. Let's move on to patient 3. And then, believe it or not, by the end of the day, you will have this in front of you. You will have all of your patients, and you actually know what you need to do. And throughout the day, trust me, it's going to get really crazy. And by having this organized method of doing things, you will be able to make sure everything gets done, right? And so this is just my way of doing it. Some people print out the list and they write down their to-dos on a list. I personally like doing this just because personally for me, I like to cater my notes to myself, and it really just helps me stay organized. So that's kind of my general workflow as an intern. I hope you all found it helpful. I'm going to try to publish more videos like this because this saves me a lot of time. It helps me keep very organized, and ultimately it helps provide good patient care. So if you appreciated this, drop a like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace.